I was drowning in disbelief when I received that text message. A single line, cold and final: "I'm divorcing you and I'm emptying our joint account." In that moment, my world shattered. Every hope and dream we'd built together crumbled into nothingness. I had loved him with all my heart, trusted him implicitly, and believed our future was a promise written in gold. Instead, his words sliced through me like a knife, exposing a betrayal so complete it left me gasping for air. I knew then that his cruelty was only the beginning, and he would never see what was coming. For years, I had imagined our life unfolding like a fairy tale. We met in college during a breezy spring semester. His smile was infectious, his wit sharp, and I was captivated by his easy confidence. We spent countless evenings debating philosophy over pizza and sharing dreams about traveling the world. When we married, our small apartment buzzed with hope, and we poured our hearts into building a life together. I worked diligently as a freelance graphic designer, while he, Michael, pursued a promising career in technology sales. We saved diligently, sacrificed luxuries, and even managed to buy a modest home on the outskirts of the city. A home that, in my eyes, symbolized the start of our shared future. But slowly, subtle cracks began to appear in our perfect picture. Michael's once affectionate glances turned guarded, his late-night phone calls grew frequent, and the warmth in our conversations was replaced by a cold distance I couldn't quite bridge. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling that something was off, chalking it up to the pressures of work and life. Yet, there were moments when I caught him glancing at my phone with a furtive look, a momentary flash of guilt that vanished too quickly for me to be sure of its meaning. I reassured myself that every relationship has its challenges. I believed in our love, and I trusted that our shared dreams would carry us through. Then, on what should have been a day of celebration, my birthday, I received that fateful text. I was hosting a small gathering at home, surrounded by a few close friends and family members, when my phone vibrated insistently in my hand. Expecting a cheerful birthday wish from Michael, I unlocked the screen. But instead of happy birthday, I saw his stark words: "I'm divorcing you and I'm emptying our joint account." The sound of laughter from the party dimmed into a haunting silence. I felt as if time itself had frozen. Every memory of our shared laughter, every tender promise, and every moment of quiet intimacy was suddenly tainted by that callous message. My hands shook uncontrollably, and I could barely force out a single word as I sat on the edge of our worn-out sofa. At first, I thought it must be some cruel prank, a mistake in texting or a miscommunication. I called him immediately, my voice trembling, pleading for an explanation. But the line went dead and subsequent calls were met only with silence. Panic set in as I rushed to check our bank account on my laptop. My heart sank to see the balance drain to zero. Every penny we had saved, every hard-earned dollar, was gone. Michael had transferred it all out. I scrolled through the transaction history in a daze: wire transfers to unknown accounts, large withdrawals that I couldn't decipher. The cold reality of his betrayal was undeniable. Not only had he left me over text, but he had also systematically stripped me of our shared financial foundation. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, the blue light of my laptop screen illuminating my tear-streaked face, as I tried to make sense of it all. How could the man I loved, the one I believed was my partner in every way, do this? The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial, it was practical, and it cut into the very roots of our future. My mind raced back to every moment I had trusted him, every promise he had made. I recalled the nights when we had planned vacations together, the mornings when we had dreamed of our retirement, the countless moments of shared hope that now lay in ruins. The next morning, I gathered every shred of courage I had left and drove to our bank. The fluorescent lights in the lobby did little to calm the storm raging inside me as I explained the situation to a sympathetic teller. They confirmed that the transactions were indeed authorized from our joint account. I felt numb, as if my life were slipping away with each keystroke on the bank's computer. I demanded to speak to a manager, and after a long wait in a sterile waiting room, I was informed that, legally, nothing could be done immediately until I filed for divorce. The injustice was palpable. I had lost not only my financial security but also the one person who was supposed to be my unwavering support. In the following days, I retreated into a fog of disbelief and sorrow. Friends called with gentle words of comfort, but their voices barely penetrated the overwhelming sense of abandonment. I began researching my legal rights, scouring online forums and scheduling consultations with divorce attorneys. Each conversation felt like a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't completely alone, that I had the power to fight back. I met with a compassionate lawyer, Ms. Daniels, who assured me that the law would protect my rights as a joint account holder and as a spouse wronged by such a callous act. As I started the divorce proceedings, I immersed myself in every detail of our financial records. I discovered that Michael had funneled the money into a series of shell companies and offshore accounts, a labyrinth of deceit designed to obscure his actions. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. Every document, every bank statement, was a stark reminder that I had been manipulated, that my sacrifices had been exploited for his selfish ambitions. I realized that I had not only been abandoned emotionally, but I had also been robbed of our shared future. A future that included our home, our savings, and the dreams we had built together. Amidst the legal chaos, I also had to confront the betrayal on a personal level. I went through a whirlwind of emotions, grief, anger, and a profound sense of loss. I canceled our joint subscriptions, severed ties with mutual acquaintances who sided with Michael, and began to rebuild my life from the shattered remnants of our marriage. I sought therapy, where Dr. Keller helped me untangle the web of self-doubt and despair that had been spun around me. "It's not your fault," she told me gently. "He made his choices. You deserve better than someone who would treat you like disposable property." Those words, though simple, lit a spark inside me, a spark of determination to reclaim my worth and rebuild my life on my own terms. Slowly I began to plan my future without Michael. I withdrew from the joint account, now legally under dispute, and established my own savings account. I renegotiated the terms of our mortgage on the house, ensuring that I would retain some equity as part of the divorce settlement. Every step I took was measured and deliberate, a silent vow that I would not allow his betrayal to define me. I started attending support groups for those recovering from infidelity and financial abuse, where I met others who had faced similar hardships. Their stories resonated with me, and I realized that I was not alone in this struggle. Every shared experience was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was hope for recovery and renewal. One crisp morning, as I walked through a park near my apartment, the chill in the air mingled with the remnants of my sorrow. I felt a subtle shift within me. The trees, bare yet resilient, stood as silent witnesses to the passage of time. I realized that if they could endure the cold and emerge vibrant with new growth in spring, so could I. I resolved then to rebuild my life with the same quiet determination. I enrolled in a business management course, determined to gain the knowledge I'd need to secure my financial future. I reconnected with old friends, slowly rebuilding the network of support that had been shattered by Michael's betrayal. Each conversation, each shared laugh, was a step toward reclaiming my identity. At the same time, the divorce proceedings dragged on, a slow legal battle that tested my patience. Michael's lawyer argued that he had the right to control our assets, that his actions were justified by his need to start anew. But Ms. Daniels and I countered with every shred of evidence we had, from bank statements to text messages, proving that his decision was not born out of mutual consent but out of selfish abandonment. The courtroom became a battleground where every piece of evidence was a weapon, and every testimony was a nail in the coffin of the marriage we once hoped would last forever. During one particularly grueling hearing, I was forced to relive the moment when Michael's text shattered my world. As I recounted the exact words he had sent, the cold declaration, the mocking tone, the laughter that followed, I could see the disbelief on the faces of those present. My voice trembled, but I held firm, determined that my story would be heard, that my pain would not be dismissed as mere drama. The judge's eyes softened as she listened, and I knew that in that moment, I was not just fighting for my money, but for my dignity and my right to live a life free from betrayal. Outside the courthouse, the winter sun cast long shadows on the pavement as I emerged, my head held high despite the bruises on my heart. Reporters milled about, their microphones thrust forward, eager for a snippet of the story that had rocked our small community. I answered their questions with measured calm, determined not to let the media turn my personal tragedy into a spectacle. I spoke of resilience, of the importance of standing up for one's rights, and of the painful lessons learned through betrayal. My words, though raw with emotion, carried the weight of hard-won truth, a truth that I would not let Michael's selfishness obscure. In the months that followed, as the legal process wound its way to a final resolution, I gradually rebuilt my life. The divorce was finalized with a settlement that restored a measure of my financial independence, a fraction of what we had once shared, but enough to give me the stability I needed. I moved into a modest apartment of my own, a place that symbolized a new beginning. Each day, I woke with a cautious optimism, a determination to rebuild my dreams from the fragments of a shattered past. I focused on my business management course, networking with professionals who recognized my potential, and slowly I began to see a future that was bright despite the scars. Yet even as I built a new life, the memories of Michael's betrayal lingered. I would sometimes catch myself staring at my phone, recalling the text message that had sent my world spinning. In those quiet moments I would feel a pang of anger, a flash of sorrow for the love that had once seemed so promising. But I also felt a deep, abiding pride. I had faced the storm head-on, fought for every cent, every promise, and emerged stronger. The pain had been transformative, teaching me that true strength is born not from avoiding heartbreak but from rising above it. One evening, as I sat on the balcony of my new apartment watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The bitterness of betrayal had not entirely faded, but it had mellowed into a bittersweet memory, a reminder of a chapter that was now closed. I thought of Michael's final words, the smug laughter in his voice, and I realized that in his attempt to rid himself of me and our shared future, he had inadvertently freed me. I was no longer defined by his cruelty, his deceit, or his selfishness. I was defined by my resilience, my determination to reclaim my life, and my unwavering belief that I deserved a love built on trust, not treachery. I began to rebuild relationships that had been strained by the fallout. I reconnected with family members who had stood by me, friends who had offered quiet support during my darkest hours, and even colleagues who admired my strength. Slowly, the narrative of my life began to shift from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. I shared my story with others, not to wallow in self-pity, but to inspire those who might be facing their own betrayals. I learned that speaking one's truth can be a powerful act of healing, a way to reclaim your narrative and declare that you will not be diminished by another's actions. In the business world, I started taking on small freelance projects, and before long, my reputation as a resilient entrepreneur began to spread. I was invited to speak at local events about overcoming adversity, and each time I spoke, I felt a growing sense of pride. I was no longer the woman who had been left with nothing but a cold text message and an empty bank account. I had transformed my pain into a catalyst for change, a beacon of hope for others who had suffered similar betrayals. Therapy sessions continued to help me navigate the complexities of my emotions. Dr. Keller reminded me that healing is not linear. Some days I would feel as though I was soaring, while on others, the weight of the past would press me down. I learned to celebrate my victories, however small, and to treat myself with kindness even when memories of Michael's callous abandonment threatened to resurface. I began journaling again, writing letters to myself, affirming my worth and acknowledging the long road I had traveled. With each word, I felt the sting of betrayal fade a little more, replaced by a quiet assurance that I was capable of forging a new path, one where I was in control. As the seasons changed, so did my outlook on life. I started attending art classes and even joined a hiking group, seeking solace in nature's rhythms. There were still nights when I would lie awake, haunted by the echo of that fateful text message, but gradually, those nights became fewer. I discovered that every ending, no matter how painful, carries the seeds of a new beginning. I allowed myself to dream again, to envision a future where I was not defined by Michael's betrayal but by the person I had become, stronger, wiser, and unafraid to stand up for my own happiness.